much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is supposed to be Meet the Candidates, and I believe there's supposed to be a title below us, but I don't see it.
Oh.
In any case, welcome. Minka is running for Cambridge City Council.
Right.
One of 28, I'm on
28. This is going to be a big race, yes.
And
so I'm here because I want to promote what you are offering to candidates. I want everyone to be aware that Anne is going to try to interview every single one of these 28 candidates, those that are willing to come on the show and be grilled by you.
in the next 3 months.
In the next 3 months. And it's really a good opportunity for the residents of Cambridge to see the breadth of experience and passion and everything that
Great ideas that all these candidates have.
That's right, great idea. So I'm happy that you're giving everyone the opportunity to do this. And I'm bringing this fan because it's hot in here. It says I'm a Cambridge fan, and every one of those candidates is going to say the same thing, that they're a Cambridge fan.
They're a Cambridge fan.
Because we all are. I mean, that's why we're running, because we want to promote the city.
I think it was better without the fans.
Okay.
So, what is it the candidates are going to, I mean, the residents are going to learn from these candidates that are on this
Well,
show?
I think they'll learn from each of the candidates what they think is important for the city, how the direction that the city's going in. Do we want to keep on the same path? Do we want to change course? So not only do we have a lot of candidates coming, but we've got two big changes in the city. One of them is that there are 2 seats that will be open. That doesn't happen too often. So Marjorie Decker is now a state rep, and she won't be running for her seat. And Henrietta Davis, after 26 years of serving the city, first as a school committee member, and then as a city councilor, and now as our mayor, she is also not going to be running again. So of the 9 seats...
You're assuming that the other 7 are all going to be reelected.
Well, no, I don't want to make that assumption.
But it may be true, but nonetheless.
I guess as some people want to say, all 9 seats are open. So,
right.
But 2 are really open.
More open than the others.
More open than usual. So I think that's part of the reason that we have so many new candidates coming in. And these are people that will, as you said, bring new ideas into the mix. Whoever those 2 new people are. Perhaps more than 2, as you point out.
Right, more than 2.
But the other big change in the city is that we have a new city manager. So as of July 1st, Rich Rossi is our city manager after 30-odd years of having Bob Healy at the helm. So that might create a different dynamic as well.
So how will it affect the changes in policy, do you think?
I don't know yet. It's still... What's this, July 30th? So it's been barely a month that he's been the new manager.
But Rossi's been active for all along, right?
He's been active, but he's been taking second seat, really. So I think we will see new changes under him. We've already started...
What direction?
New directions.
In what directions do you think the changes might go?
Well, one of them that we're already starting to see is his willingness to talk about the employment practices of the city. It was a pretty big blow to the city to lose the lawsuit, the employment lawsuit. And I think the city administration has done some soul searching, and that might result in new policies going forward.
Which lawsuit are we talking about?
This is the Malvina lawsuit. And then there were...
How long ago was that?
The lawsuit started in 2000, but it was finally settled against the city in 2012, I think. So it was quite a long process.
About discrimination?
It was initially a discrimination case, and the city didn't lose on those grounds, but the city lost on retaliating against Montero because she filed a discrimination suit. So it's sort of a subtlety of the case, but I think that's important. But it does mean that the city is taking a hard look at their own internal practices.
So they won't fire people who talk?
Well, that's one part of it, but the other part is making sure that the department heads are aware that they really need to pay attention to this as a serious, potentially serious issue. So we've had a few committee meetings on this in the city council to discuss it, and we'll continue talking about that.
And what is the council gonna accomplish in the next 2 years?
Well,
What are the most important things for them to?
well, I think the most important thing that we're looking at now is all the development. So no one can deny that there's an incredible boom going on right now in the commercial sector as well as the residential sector. You see cranes everywhere for the very large buildings. We're on track to probably bring our total residential numbers from the 107,000 that we are right now, probably up to 120 by the time the next census happens in 2020.
10 years.
Less than 10 years.
It's not 10 years.
So, and I think that can be good, especially if we're bringing more kids in. So that's one thing that the city council is pushing, and I'm sure that a lot of the other candidates will push that too, to create housing, because there will be more residential housing built here in Central Square, North Point, Alewife is already happening.
How many units, how many people would those new places accommodate?
Well, right now in Alewife, we've already got about 1,400 units that are being built or have already been permitted. So that's already maybe 2,000 people just in the Alewife area with room for more. But I think people realize that we need kids in the city too. Without the liveliness that kids bring and the enthusiasm, exuberance, and all of that, we'll become a more drab city. We need kids.
Kids are nice.
Kids are nice, and that's part of what will
It
help
helps
the school systems too.
Schools that people want to send their kids to,
Right, there are only about 6,000 kids in the Cambridge Public Schools right now.
as compared to what it was 10 years ago?
Well, the numbers are about 8,000 from 10 years ago. Part of it is the charter school phenomenon, so kids and parents deciding to go to the charter schools instead of the main public schools. We have many very good private schools around here, Shady Hill, BB&N, to name two, and so parents send their kids there too. So my hope would be that people would see that the Cambridge Public Schools are where they should be sending their kids if they're living here in
But
Cambridge.
the charter schools are public as well, right?
Well, I think,
Except
we
that it's
can
hard to get in.
quibble. You can quibble about that. Cambridge taxpayers pay about $10 million to the charter schools. Because that's how many kids in Cambridge are going to these charter schools. So it's public money that's funding them, but I really wouldn't call them public schools.
Not in the same-
That's just my bias.
Not public in the same sense.
Right.
I think
So
we're
development is one thing that you're gonna hear the candidates talking about. The changing demographics of the city is another thing. We're getting younger. The people that are choosing to live here are more mobile, so they stay for a shorter period of time. That adds to the mix of the city. And then the balance, I think, between the commercial development and the residential development. The pendulum swinging between what are we building, more residential or more commercial. So for many years, Cambridge administration under Bob Healy in particular realized that the thing that we needed to do to maintain economic health in Cambridge was to get business to come in.
Okay, well, our time is up, but I don't know how we're gonna get the other person in, so.
Okay, well. So I will tell you that everywhere I go when I'm meeting candidates, I will tell them what a great opportunity it is to come into Central Square, to come to CCTV, which is funded by Comcast, but also by taxpayers, and see the new studio here, and be interviewed by you, and share their
Get
vision.
your stuff on air, I guess
the
it's
city.
Channel 9, I believe.
Channel 9?
I think so.
Okay.
think
I have that other thing with the wrong thing on it.
I don't think I'm on camera.
You not on camera?
Now I am.
Now you are. Oh. Get closer. Hi.
Hello.
Hi. This is Joanna Lancaster. She's Burt Lancaster's daughter,
Yes.
and she's helping to spread the word about the 100th anniversary,
Of his birth.
centennial of Burt Lancaster's birth, and helping to get his films shown widely. How widely?
How widely? Well, this year we've had centennial celebrations in Los Angeles at UCLA, at the UCLA Film and Television Archive. We've been to Lincoln Center for a week-long retrospective in May, and now we're here showing films at the Brattle and at the Harvard Archive, and we went to Bologna to show a few of his movies during the month of June at the Ritrovato, which is a festival for film preservation.
Uh-huh. Will it go further, you think?
Oh, I think definitely we have interest in other places. At the end of this month, I'm going to be going with my two sisters to El Paso, Texas, which has a classic film festival every year. They specialize in showing older movies, and on their own, they were doing a 5-film tribute, so we're going to come along and support that. I believe the AFI is probably going to do something in Washington, D.C. At the beginning of the year. And then we're talking with other universities in the states all around the country.
You'll get around.
Yeah, we're trying to get the word out, yeah.
So he made films for how many years?
From 1946, his first film, The Killers, came out, and then until about 1989, when he shot his final movie for television, Separate but Equal.
So that's that's more than 50 years.
Yeah, yeah.
That's pretty long career.
Yes, a long career, a long career. He didn't start young. I mean, he was 32. He was just out of the Army when he made his first film, which is young to me, but not young to start a career, of such magnitude. Yeah.
He started as an acrobat.
He started out as an acrobat. He was playing in carnivals and in circuses and in vaudeville theaters until he went into the Army. He had a partner, Nick Cravat, and the two of them had a two-man act that was, I think maybe perhaps a little bit humorous, but very physical, acrobatic act. And he had been in the circus before that, so as an acrobat.
So he was physically great condition?
He was always in great condition. He really was. He jogged. I mean, he did have a few bad habits, like he smoked, but he always jogged regularly, a couple of miles every day. And he had a rope in his office that he would climb, about 20 feet up in the air to stay in condition. Yeah.
Until when?
Oh, as long as he had an office, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much always.
Amazing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, I saw what was that?
The
Crimson
Pirate. Yeah.
Flying across.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that one, I know that he and his partner, Nick Cravat, apparently the stuntmen in Italy quit, and they had to do those stunts that they do on the balconies and without any rehearsal. It wasn't so much that they were afraid to do them, but to do them without rehearsal, they didn't know how it was going to turn out. Turned out fine.
They didn't fall.
They didn't fall. They survived, and they're pretty funny bits. It's almost, some of the humor is almost like either silent movie or cartoon humor in that particular movie, but there's a lot of dependence on sight gags and things. Yeah,
that's great. So how many he made?
I think he
89
made
films,
89 films.
89 films in 50.
In 54.
54 years.
Is that right? 53 years, something like that. Yeah.
It's like 2 a year or
yeah,
more.
pretty much. Yeah.
Or it must have been more in the early years.
In the early days, I think when you look at some of the films that they've been screening at Harvard and at the Brattle, there's a lot of film noirs in the very beginning, and they were making those, I think, 2 or 3 a year in the very beginning, yeah. And then later on, he took charge of his own career and started his own production company, and at that point, things slowed down a little bit, since you can't do it all that quickly.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. So there are all these. So how many is Harvard showing?
I think they're showing 20, and I think the Brattle's showing an additional 20. So I think about 40 films are being screened by the two venues.
Wow, that's like
Um,
about half of the,
Yeah, and
collection.
most of the good ones are there to be seen. I mean, the ones the most memorable. There's still some. Some, of course, have deteriorated in their vaults, need to be restored, and it becomes, or it's difficult to find a print in good shape, and that becomes always a problem when you're dealing with older films. So preserving them seems to be a priority.
so some of them have been preserved.
Some of them, well, they just restored the swimmer. Sony just restored the swimmer, so that looks beautiful for the first time in years, I think.
Yeah.
And they did restore the leopard quite a few years back, and I believe there's a digital restoration of the film Twilight's Last Gleaming that's going to be showing. And it's to me and to my family, it's important that they do that because my dad didn't want to write his memoirs or do a Lifetime Achievement Award thing or anything like that. He just wanted people to see the movies. That was his legacy, he felt.
So which ones do you think are going to be seen again and again?
Oh, I think there are an awful lot of good ones. I mean, I think, well, obviously, Birdman of Alcatraz and Elmer Gantry and The Killers, and even Crisscross has quite a reputation. And then there's, and the later movies like Field of Dreams, of course, people love that movie. And I think Local Hero is quite a charming picture. And of course, today, I'm going to go look at Gunfight at the OK Corral, and that's a pretty famous title. I think people remember
Sure
that
is,
too.
yeah. Especially if you're from Arizona, Diane.
Okay. Tombstone.
Yeah, there you go.
Boot Hill, all that stuff, yeah. Yeah, I think, and Veracruz, of course, is, another one because he's with Gary Cooper, and a number of the ones with Kirk Douglas, I think. He worked also with a lot of good directors, so that helps too. And then there are ones people haven't seen much that are really good movies. Like Alzana's Raid,
Yeah,
I think it's a
right.
wonderful movie. So.
Yeah. So how important were the politics to his films?
Oh, very important. I mean, he felt that as a public figure, he had an opportunity and a duty to let people know, what he believed, to support the things that he believed. It wasn't so much let them know, but to stand up for what he believed. And that could be something, a political issue or a social issue. He was very active in support of all really, he was a real supporter of the First Amendment and of civil liberties. He was big, as he did the commercial once, he was a card-carrying member of the ACLU.
He should support it. He should
Yeah.
support CCDB.
Well, I think he would have been happy to, but you had to tell him about it.
Probably did.
Yeah.
There you
So.
go.
Yeah. No, politics were important. He did a lot of movies with political subtext or overt texts. He did the first Kennedy assassination conspiracy movie, I think, that anybody did when you did Executive Action. And his last film, Separate But Equal, tells you what he thought about, the importance of the civil rights movement in his life. So.
Mm-hmm. And the Vietnam War, I guess.
In the Vietnam War, in Go Tell the Spartans, and even in Alzana's Raid as well, because it's a subtext in Alzana's Raid. And he was a big supporter of gay rights, very vocal at a time when actors were a little fearful about being vocal in support of that cause. So yeah, his beliefs were important to him.
That's important.
Yeah, it's good.
You think he had an effect on the policies?
Only in, I don't know how big an effect, in truth. I think that a little bit. I mean, I think if people admire someone and that person they admire speaks out for a certain cause, it can have an effect. I don't know how far-reaching that effect is. I think, you lead by example, so to that degree, yes. Certainly had an effect when he would support monetarily specific issues, like the defense of this person or that person who was charged with something, that kind of thing, yes, then you have a direct effect. But, I think over time, bit by bit, it's sort of incremental. I don't know if I know that he, for example, along with lots of other celebrities, came out for fair housing in California in the 60s, and did a big benefit at the Hollywood Bowl, and, you know, my dad and Elizabeth Taylor and, you know, all these well-known celebrities were saying, you know, fair housing should be the law of the land, and it lost on the ballot, so, you know, on a smaller scale, you know, he did a movie about children with, who were institutionalized, and children who had mental retardation, called A Child is Waiting. And I think that had probably some effect, at least in terms of comforting the parents who were living through that kind of situation in their own lives, maybe made them feel less alone, you know, made them feel recognized to a degree.
Great. So do you enjoy not distributing, spreading the word about his films?
Well, I'm meeting a lot of lovely people, and I'm having a good time, and I'm getting to see all these movies on the big screen, and that's
There you
actually a
go.
treat for me.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a very different experience, yeah. And I've got to meet you
There you
at
go.
some of these screenings.
Even
so.
that's worth something.
Yeah.
We have a few minutes more. What was I going to say? So how many more films are being shown at the Harvard Film Archive? Or
I don't know
at the
where
Bell?
we are in the series, but I think we're right smack dab in the middle of it, so I imagine that
There are more films to see.
there are definitely more films to see. They're showing Fridays, usually I think they're showing 2 to 4 films a week, so I know that The Leopard will be coming up soon, which is definitely something that has to be seen on the big screen, because it's a luscious production, you know, beautifully directed, and, you know, probably his most popular film that he ever made in Italy, anyway. Yeah, because it was, you know, it is an Italian, you know, it's an important part of their history and their literature, so, you know, they love that movie, so. And it's beautiful to see, it really is.
And we saw an Italian movie
Last night, yeah, we saw a conversation piece by the same director as The Leopard, Luchino Visconti, who was a big influence on my dad and an important director for him.
Throat's getting out. So, let's see, what was I going to say? So what was life like with your dad?
Well, he was definitely very outgoing. You know, he'd sometimes enter the room on his hands.
Blonde Adonis, the third description.
Blonde Adonis. You know, I never even think of him as blonde. Isn't that funny? He was blonde in The Crimson Pirate, but that's because he was in a sunny climate, you know, and is becoming blonder as the day progressed, you know, and being in the sun all day long. Yeah, he was very athletic. He taught the kids all to tumble and carry on and walk on their hands and do all those things, with the exception of me, because I was not very good at that. He was very funny. He was a big reader. He was always reading. He had incredible powers of concentration. You could not get his attention if he was doing a crossword puzzle or if he was engrossed in a book. And he did do the crossword puzzle first thing every morning in pen. Yeah, so he was, and he loved opera, just loved opera. He was a big Frank Sinatra fan, and loved to cook. He was a great cook.
And the food was good.
The food was very, very good. He
Great.
eventually went to cooking school in Italy
Oh, really?
for a course, because he was so into cooking Italian food by then. He just wanted to get a little bit better.
He had a special relation with Italy.
Yeah, he did. He grew up in an Italian section of Harlem when he was a kid, and he served during World War II in the Italian theater. Met my mother in Italy, and then returned to Italy again and again to make, you know, movies and, you know, form relationships with Italian directors and writers, and just really loved all things Italian, I think. Yeah. But he was Irish.
What was it like to follow him to the sites?
Oh, it was great fun. You know, we were 5 kids, so we were sort of a motley crew, and sometimes if he didn't know what to do with us, I mean, not that my mother wasn't there chasing after us too, but if he felt like he had to keep us busy, or he would put us in the movies. You know, my little sister and I are in the last scene of Elmer Gantry, and I remember when we were in England, and he was making The Devil's Disciple with Kirk Douglas and Laurence Olivier. We were all dressed up as little, Puritans for a scene, So yeah, and I remember they'd take the bottle out of my little sister's mouth because she wouldn't let go of it, and it was a bit